Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Welcome to our webinar today, Taking Care of Our Mountain Communities, brought to you by HealthLinks and Pinnacol Assurance. Let's cover just a few housekeeping items about our webinar. All participants will be kept on mute throughout the duration of the presentation. Please use the chat function if you have any technical issues or questions for the any kind of technical problems. If you have a question for the panelists and the moderator, please use the Q&A box in the control panel on your screen. We'll be taking questions through the Q&A box. This webinar is being recorded, and there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar as you close out. Please take a minute to complete. It's very helpful for us to get feedback from you on how you like the webinar today. I'm now going to turn the webinar over to our moderator, Dr. Lily Tenney. She is the co-founder and director of HealthLinks, and she will be moderating the session and introducing our panelists today.
Thanks, Kira, and welcome everybody. Good morning. We're here today to talk with you as participants and with our leaders, our panelists in hospitality, chambers of commerce, and the ski industry about the balance of maintaining safety and a positive experience for employees and guests in mountain towns this winter. This is a subject near and dear to my heart, having been born and raised in a mountain town where I held several jobs in ski industry, service, and restaurants. Now at the Center for Health, Work, and Environment, we've been working almost for really the last 10 months with COVID response, working to reach small employers in Colorado and beyond in Western states to help support them with translating and implementing guidance from federal, state, and local officials. So I'm very excited to be here today. This is our first webinar as part of a series supported by Pinnacol Assurance Educational Grant. So thanks for the support, and to our sponsor, Pinnacol. So very, very happy to welcome our panelists. Please welcome Melanie Mills, who has served as president and CEO of the Colorado Ski Industries Trade Association, Colorado Ski Country USA, since 2008. She is the 10th president of the organization and the first woman to hold the position. Mills provides leadership and strategic direction for the Association of Colorado Ski Area Owners and Operators. She oversees the development and implementation of Colorado's international ski tourism programs for the organization, in addition to overseeing the company's various departments and efforts. She works closely with their 22 member ski resorts and the board of trustees, other ski industry associations, and state tourism entities to further amplify the group's voice for Colorado skiing. Please welcome Chris Romers, who serves as president and CEO of Vail Valley Partnership, or VVP. VVP is the regional chamber of commerce representing Vail Valley, Colorado. VVP provides leadership and vision to enhance commerce and economic vitality of the Vail Valley. VVP was named Chamber of the Year by the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives in 2016 and just last year in 2020. Congratulations. We also welcome Sarah Solomon, who's the Director of Human Resources for Sonnelat Properties, which includes the iconic Sonnelat Hotel in Vail, Colorado. I'm sure lots of you on the webinar today have passed it or maybe visited it. She has spent the past 17 years in Colorado mountain towns focused on elevating the employee experience and turning seasonal, quote, ski bums into lifelong locals. She has also served on economic development boards and works closely with community groups. So, welcome, everybody. As I mentioned, we're here today to talk about the impact of COVID on our mountain communities. When COVID hit last March, we were nearing the end of the winter season. Businesses, ski resorts were forced to shut down across the country. Then summer came, visitors and even new residents from outside of the state and both coasts arrived. And now here we are, almost a year since the start of the pandemic in the United States, with cases still surging, but businesses and ski resorts operating. So to get started, I'll ask each of you, starting with you, Melanie, to tell us what you feel is unique about the pandemic's impact on mountain communities and specifically the workforce.
Thanks, Lily. And I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank you and the Center for Health, Work and Environment, as well as Pinnacol, for sponsoring the event today. It's always great to get together with some of my colleagues from the travel biz, and I hope we have a good time today and that our participants find the discussion interesting. We look forward to hearing questions from them as well. Wow, where to begin in terms of what is unique about the impact? I was struck, just as you were introducing us, by how close we are getting to the 1-year anniversary of March 14th, which for our industry, the ski industry, was the day when we were ordered to shut down at about 8:45 p.m. On a Saturday, one of the busiest arrival days of the 1920 ski season. And we were ordered to be shut down the next morning. We had no warning. The pandemic was all very new to all of us at that point. And I would say that the learning curve since then has been steep for everyone involved. And here we are almost a year later, and we are open and operating during a pandemic. You know, what really is unique is that these mountain communities where ski areas are located, we offer what everyone wants more than ever during a pandemic, which is the opportunity to, in a relatively low risk environment, get outside and enjoy some time with friends and or family. And we do that in a we're doing that in a way that is very thoughtful, we've gone through a great deal of planning in order to get to this point. Our supply this year is constrained. There's enormous demand and constrained supply. And really for the first time, all of these communities for whom hospitality is our first name, our middle name, and our last name, you know, we're all a little bit afraid of the visitor, of the traveler. You know, we're all a little bit afraid of being around each other. And it creates a new element for our employees, for us as business owners and operators, and for our community as a whole in terms of providing that welcome that we are known for around the world, and doing it in a way that makes people feel assured that we're doing all that we can to mitigate the risk of transmission of COVID-19 while they're visiting us. So that's a mouthful, but it does create some really unique operating conditions for all of us.
Thanks, Melanie. Chris, from your perspective, we might have a few, maybe just a handful of people on today that, you know, are thinking, you live and work in paradise. What could be so bad about that? Can you give us some perspective on the realities of what this pandemic has brought to the business community and workers?
Yeah, sure. Of course. And thank you. It is, we're really grateful and blessed to be able to live in Colorado and to be able to be in the mountains, to have the access to recreation and the access to the outdoors that frankly, a lot of people in urban areas around the country might not have that easy access to. But the hardships are real. And Melanie touched on the beginning of it, but the fact is there's no guidebook and there's no model to how you support your workforce and how you support a business community during a pandemic, right? We're all learning as we go. And in a community like any of our ski towns in Colorado, where 50 to 60 to 70% of the employment comes from hospitality and is dependent on visitors, it raises that dynamic that Melanie touched on of the need for economic vitality to support businesses, to support our workforce, comes from bringing people in. And there's this inherent struggle with that. And the Zoomtown impacts of people flocking to their second homes, and visitors flocking to places that have outdoor access and natural area resources, be it ski resorts or national parks or other areas. State campgrounds were full all summer long. From the minute they opened, they were booked up. And I think what that presents to our workforce and to our community is the reminder that quality of life starts with a good job. And if you're not able to go to work, and you're not able to, in the hospitality business, have fun at work, or inherently a fun industry, a fun state to be, if it's hotels or ski resorts, or restaurants, it's around people who have that excitement. And when you layer in a pandemic, it creates a lot of uncertainty. And I think that's the most unique thing, is the impact and the reliance on tourism that all of our communities need to really face as we move forward.
Thank you. A lot of important points. Sarah, from your perspective in HR and in hospitality, what's been the biggest impact in your world?
Well, I'll echo some of what's been said already by Melanie and Chris, but, obviously being in the hospitality industry, our workforce is not able to work remotely. And we are essential workers, not in so much as we are providing healthcare during this pandemic, but we are essential workers in that we need to be here to welcome our guests, and we need to be here to do our jobs and to have our mountain lifestyles that we love so much. So yes, there is a lot of anxiety that comes with bringing employees into that environment, and so a lot of our roles have shifted to minimizing that anxiety through what we do as leaders and as community members, and how we put in restrictions or limitations, and also still tell people, yes, this is a safe place. We want you here. And I think that also just one of the ways in which our employees have been impacted in this mountain community. I mean, the mountains have always been challenging to live in. I mean, everybody's aware of that. There's a lack of affordable housing, lack of childcare, even access to low-cost healthcare, things of that nature, that I think the pandemic just elevated some of those concerns and some of those pressures. And as a result, we also lost some of our workforce. Some of our more transient or seasonal workers returned home to some of their more permanent locations or closer to family, so that they could be assured that they would have access to housing if the guests didn't come, for example, or access to healthcare, some just closer to those things that they felt they maybe wouldn't have access to here in the mountain community. So certainly we have tried to address that and really emphasize everything that our mountain communities do have to support our employees during this time. And so that's been a big focus, I would say.
Well, thank you, Sarah. And you bring up some of the standing realities, as you mentioned, that have been elevated by the pandemic around employment in these communities. I'm wondering what some of the biggest what some of the biggest challenges have been related to the guidelines or restrictions for public health in relation to COVID, and how you have been keeping that experience and the business livelihood a positive one. So starting, I guess now let's go in reverse order. Sarah, starting with you, can you speak to some of the ways that you've been overcoming these challenges as far as the employee experience and ensuring their safety at the same time?
Sure, yeah. Well, certainly it has been a challenge for us to try to create a positive employee experience. I mean, that's something we're always striving to do, and create a culture around making this a fun place to be and a place that people want to spend many, many years at. And putting in restrictions where all of a sudden we can't have employee gatherings, we can't have holiday parties, we can't host these things that have been such a part of our culture, even simple things like dining in the break room, where you used to get to know your coworkers, and by 6 to 8 people sitting around a close table and conversing over a meal, all of a sudden that is no longer possible, and now we must sit 1 or 2 to a table spread out in a giant banquet space. And those types of things have definitely been challenging. Having employee housing is another thing that we've always considered a benefit, but it adds another element there of frankly restriction, and having to put some restrictions on employees' work life outside of their job. And so that's certainly something that has been a struggle. I do think our employees have been outstanding in understanding the purpose of those restrictions, and ultimately our goal has been to care for our employees, and the best way we know how is by remaining open and by keeping their paychecks coming and ensuring that our guests feel comfortable coming here and dining in our restaurants. And so our employees have been so supportive, and recognize the importance of these restrictions, and thus adhere to them. So see, I'm not certain I'm addressing your question of the elements that we have put in place but certainly addressing the challenges there. But I would say, I guess, to address what we have done, and is to really reach out to the community in so many ways, and recognize that there's no way that one single business can have all the answers, especially in this time of uncertainty. And so we've really reached out to all the resources within our community and collaborated. There's been task forces that have been put together across industries to really come up with ideas and best practices. And it's certainly helped a lot to not feel like we're going it alone, and that we are working together as a community to find ways to remain open and keep our businesses thriving.
Well, and that's what it sounds like. I mean, when we talked briefly a couple of weeks ago, it really sounds like there's been some exceptional examples of how government and the business community have come together. Chris, can you tell us how the business leaders have stepped up to keep workers healthy and safe?
Yeah, of course. And Sarah touched on this, but I think this comes down to the uncertainty around the public health orders, and will they change, and what impacts will that have, and what am I allowed to do? that uncertainty creates this environment where it's completely different than it might have been pre-COVID. I think that what we've done is try to focus as much as we can on the communication piece. And that's everything from building industry guidance, looking at, from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint, federal information, best practices regionally, state, local. How do we convene those leaders in task forces to share challenges and to communicate back out to the community as a whole what those expectations might be or what those ideas for implementation might be. But really what it comes down to, it's a communication challenge, because we might have great contact to the business owners, but does it make it to the frontline, the supervisors, down to the frontline staff, over to the guest? It's like a game of telephone where you can communicate all day long, but if it doesn't make its way down that chain, then it's not going to have the intended outcome. And I think that focus on communication and collaboration is what we've seen here in Eagle County has been really successful. And I think that it would be really important to cover, when we're talking about this specific topic around the challenges of public health orders and implementing new procedures, is the importance of good intent. And I think that there's so many questions of, well, if I do this and I see my neighbor doing this, and everyone can get wrapped up in this idea of, we're not doing it that way or the right way. They're not doing it the right way. Well, what is the right way? We don't even know what the right way is. Are you operating with good intent within the parameters of the public health order, and doing it with the employee wellness in mind and the guest experience in mind? And if you're operating within that good intent, you're probably doing the right thing, right? And being able to pick up the phone and call the chamber, or pick up the phone and call your neighbor and say, how are you dealing with this event restriction? How are you dealing with this different aspect? How are you communicating with your guest about the mask ordinance? What information do we need from the town? The communication that we're seeing here is truly at a level that we've never seen before, and it's out of necessity. But people are operating in good intent, and they're not afraid to ask clarifying questions of their neighbors, of the town, of the business community. I think that's been to our benefit.
Thank you. Melanie, you brought up something really, I think, poignant to the situation, and this cuts across every industry that's customer facing. I'm wondering how your members are handling assuming the new role of enforcement officer, with trying to create that positive experience for guests, but also the impact it's having on the mental well-being day to day for a lot of these people who didn't really sign on for the job of enforcement officer for, mask up on a daily basis. What are you hearing? What are you seeing from your members?
Yeah, this is a tough one. There's not a good one size fits all solution. To a person across our industry, employees at all levels of our operations at ski areas, employee wellness and mental health is really the top concern. It has been since the beginning of the season. All the things that Chris outlined about how folks work in this industry because it's a fun industry to work in. Well, what's fun about 1,000 times a day telling somebody to keep their mask pulled up over their mouth and nose, and doing the same thing day after day after day, because it's a new group of guests every day coming to visit us, many of whom are coming from states that don't have COVID protocols like we have in Colorado. So we do, I personally, I know the resort leaders across the state are very concerned about employee wellness and mental health. And there, to some degree, there are things we can do, and there are things that we're constrained in terms of our ability to do. Sarah alluded to a few of those. We're gonna all, I think, have some post-pandemic PTSD when this is behind us? How are people going to sort through what this experience was? It's definitely important that they feel like they're part of a team, like we're all in this together. We have our resort chiefs out working the mask compliance line at our base area lifts in the morning, right alongside their frontline employees, because it's not just it's a task for everyone. We're trying to, more than ever, ski areas are always built on teamwork, but really more than ever this year, there's this sense of we're going to make it through this together. Our goal is to stay open and operate all season long, for you to get your paycheck all season long, for you to stay healthy all season long, and for us to get through this together. We're all going to have an experience that we hopefully never repeat in our lifetimes, but we're going to do it together. And I think that sense of a greater burden on the shoulders of leadership to be on the ground, to be helping out with facing frontline employee issues, recognizing them, seeing them, hearing about them, helping them do their job has been a critical part of this year and continues to be. There's no way to dodge the fact that working in this business, in any hospitality component, under all the COVID constraints that we're under this year, it's not as fun as it usually is. And let's just be upfront and honest about that and make it a team effort and focus on the long-term goal, which is getting through this with everybody standing in good health and looking forward to what's ahead of us, as opposed to having regrets about the way we did things to get through this.
Thank you, Melanie. And you bring up such an important point around the concerns of employee mental health. Chris and Sarah, can you provide more on what you're seeing for solutions and supports at the community and also at the business level for supporting employee mental health during this challenging time?
Sarah?
Sure. Yeah. I agree with Melanie that this is certainly not the most fun year. But I also think there's been a lot of positives that have come out of this. And one of those that I have seen as a positive is an extra emphasis on it's okay to ask for help. And we're starting to end the stigma of mental health being an under the table issue. I certainly believe it's been brought right on top of the table. And as a result, we've learned of so many resources that are available to our employees. And certainly a year ago, I was not aware of all these resources. And so I feel like we have, exposed so much support that is available, most of it at no cost to employees. And now, our roles, even in an HR department, have changed. They've shifted to really ensuring that our employees know about these resources. And as Melanie said, we're on the ground. We're talking to employees and hopefully learning about those issues before it's too late. And, I will say during our closure, we worked from home as an HR department. And I think that HR is one of those departments that can easily be turned into a remote function. And even pre-pandemic, it was. And I think there's a big case for HR and some of those more administrative roles being on site and being face-to-face. even if it's a masked face, actually seeing those employees and feeling their energy and talking with them and hearing about their issues that they're having that day and not a week later. I will say that, I'm really excited about some of the things that we've been able to do with our community partners, and, some that I should mention, like Eagle Valley Behavioral Health has been huge, and Speak Up, Reach Out. They've actually helped us as a company to create what we're calling our peer support group. And that is a group that actually goes live Monday, February 1st, where we will have an employee warm line for our employees to call from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. They will get a Sun and Alp employee on the other end. So if they're going through an issue, no matter how small or big, they'll have somebody who can, number one, listen to them, and then number two, direct them in the right place to go to receive the appropriate support. And super excited that our employees it really has been an employee driven initiative. And I just think that's going to be huge to help people in this time and also after the pandemic. We also have, resources such as work-life partners. That is really more so on the Front Range, but we were fortunate to link up with them about a year ago, maybe a little bit before then. And they have been able to support our employees in ways that, frankly, we never would have been able to ourselves as an individual company. And that is something that I hope will only continue to grow in our mountain communities, to be able to support employees, not just from a mental health perspective, but also from a financial perspective, childcare, any type of sort of life challenge that they may be experiencing.
I'm so glad, Sarah, you brought up this Speak Up, Reach Out. Our Health Links program manager, David Shapiro, put that link into the chat. But it's just, Eagle County is one of the leaders in the state, I think, as we all know, in public health and working on some of the mental health supports. So these are great resources. And I know we had one of the participants ask specifically about that. Chris, what are you seeing, and what discussions are happening around employee mental health, and how are you seeing businesses come to the table?
Yeah, it's I should have offered to speak before Sarah because she covered almost everything. I want to reinforce the Eagle Valley Behavioral Health effort and the other partners like Speak Up, Reach Out, and others that are out there really being champions of this effort to make it, to increase the awareness of the resources and to build the culture that it's okay to talk about these things. I think that's a really important thing across the entire Rocky Mountain West. There's been numerous articles in Outside Magazine and others about the entire Rocky Mountain region from Montana all the way down to New Mexico and the suicide and mental health issues in these communities. And we're really, I think the ability to share and have that be okay, to not be okay, is a big deal. In the case of the business community, we are working with Eagle Valley Behavioral Health to really scale a program very similar to what Sarah was talking about with the employee peer hotline. And how do we train peer counselors, and how do we get into businesses, from large businesses to small businesses across the board, to really, again, really scale and provide information and communication about the resources that exist. Eagle Valley Behavioral Health, led by Vail Health and Chris Lindley, is an exemplary organization. I mean, that is the dedication, the leadership, the fundraising, the ability to make a big impact in a short time with websites and resources and bringing counselors into the community and providing access and information. We need to continue to do that, and we need to scale that across the board so that the smallest organization to the largest employer, that their employees know about these resources, not just the business owners and not just HR. But again, like I said in the earlier question, is the hardest part is getting that information down to the front lines of people that are working seasonally and might not know about them, or people that are working part-time and might not know about them, et cetera. So I think that there's things that can be modeled here, and I think it needs to be an intentional effort, and it's a communication problem, and it's a elbow grease problem, and we just need to keep pushing at it and leveraging those partners that are doing such great work.
Thank you, Chris. And it's been really nice from the perspective of public health and our work with HealthLinks to see those sort of synergies happening, and they are happening in other mountain communities, in other rural communities across the state and outside of the state. So we can provide some additional resources and follow up to this for those of you that are asking for more information. I want to pivot now a little bit to this idea of the post-pandemic era. So we've you all have talked about some of the positives that have come from it. Melanie, you even stated that we might be suffering some PTSD from this, and I'm wondering if each of you can speak to what you envision the future holding for worker health and safety that has been impacted. So what lessons have been learned, and what do you see the future looking like? And Melanie, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm gazing into my crystal ball.
Yeah, look hard.
in my office in Denver. It's a great question, and I would say, first of all, we have discovered a level of collaboration this year as a result of the pandemic that I think has been latent. It's been out there all along, and we just have been so busy kind of competing with each other and throwing our elbows, and we've got more snow here and things are better there. And we both within the industry in Colorado, around the country, within ski areas themselves, have developed a new level of collaboration that we hadn't seen before. And it really, the pandemic brought out the best in our ability to collaborate. And I think that will continue. Whether that is, resort, I do a weekly call with all the resort chiefs where they are sharing information about what's happening on the ground with their employees. We've tried this, we tried that, and we had no success with it. Has anybody tried? There's just a lot more of that. We're getting our food and beverage employees onto regular calls across the industry with each other to just share concerns, ideas, to talk to each other, to support each other. They're facing some of the same things. I think those things will continue. When it comes to wellness and mental health, we're all kind of dancing around this notion that it's okay now to ask for help. I think there's been our eyes and ears are open to the fact that this is overwhelming to everyone in different ways at different times. And we need to give people the help they need, whatever that looks like. And we need to give people the room to say, I need some help here, or I need a day away from here, or I need to work from home for a few days, or whatever it is. That's a real awakening in the business community, because it's been all about, hey, working 8 days a week, we're going to get through the season, it's going to be great, then we're going to all go to Baja. And we can't wait till the end of the season to blow off a little bit of steam, to release the pressure a little bit, because everybody has it on their shoulders. Everybody's lying awake at night on certain nights worrying about how is this going to work? How is that going to work? How am I going to juggle all these things that I have to do, not just at work, but how am I going to get my aging parents their vaccine? How am I going to do all kinds of things? And I think the first step to solving a lot of these, or at least addressing a lot of these wellness and mental health issues, is a recognition at all levels, particularly among leadership, that these are real issues and we need to have resources to address them. And they have to be part of the regular fabric of our business.
Thank you. Chris, are there lessons, innovations you see coming to the businesses and the mountain communities post-pandemic?
Yeah. I want to ditto and double down on the collaboration effort. I think there's an increased focus on collaboration. I think it is something that will stay with us culturally for the long term, recognizing that we're not throwing elbows, to use Melanie's term, with the proverbial business next door, but rather we're all here to take care of the guest. And I think that I think what I'm seeing and starting to see that I think will stay into the future is the focus on the experiential nature of a mountain vacation. If that's in the summer, if that's a ski vacation in the winter, it's the experiential nature of getting to do, right? It's an active vacation. It's an experience. It's everything from the on mountain to the rivers to the skiing, that experiential nature. And I think that we, as an industry across the state, will be better served as we talk about the experience versus promoting some of the things we have in the past, be it events. And events are important and will be important in the future. But what getting past just the event to what does the event mean to people and what does it allow them to do? Spend quality time with their family, et cetera. So I think that experiential nature from a workforce standpoint, I really think there's going to be an increased focus on what career pathways and opportunities exist, where it's going to be much more relationship driven and a little bit less transactional, right? The companies that really thrive coming out of this are going to be the ones who focus on the employee experience as well as the guest experience, and focus on what opportunities exist for their employees to build relationships with each other, build relationships within the community, grow deeper networks, and be involved in emerging leader programs, and be involved in community training programs and volunteering, versus you show up, you do your job, and you leave. I think that we've probably been moving in that direction a little bit. And I think the pandemic just blew that out of the water and forced businesses to really focus on what are the opportunities and what are the relationships that we have. I think that's going to be a sea change.
Thank you. Sarah, what is your perspective on the future of work?
Well, the two of them stole a lot of my words, of course, but no, the collaboration is certainly something. I mean, I know even the task force that originally had a single focus, and that was COVID task force, that brought a bunch of leaders together locally in Eagle County. I know they've already begun to start talking about some of our other community issues that need to be addressed, and so. That collaboration is not waiting for any post-pandemic time. It's continuing. We're starting, or keeping with that momentum that was already created. Mm-hmm. I do also totally agree with Chris in that the employee experience is huge, and I certainly think that there will be even post-pandemic just this war for talent. Yes, there have been a lot of hospitality workers who have been laid off during this time, but there's been some that are trying new industries, exploring other opportunities, and they're also going to be once travel returns to normal, so to speak, there's going to be a lot of other opportunities out there for our hospitality workers. And so I do believe that those individuals are going to seek out the companies who took good care of their employees during the pandemic, and who really cared from a large perspective, not the narrow focus of their job, but also what's going on outside of work, and how can we make your employee experience a good life experience all around. So yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of good that has come out of this, that has shifted our perspective and really helped us to refocus on what's important.
Thank you. Well, we've had a lot of good questions come up in the Q&A. And one of them is specific just to, it's a hard question. It's asking about ethical considerations of promoting luxury vacation and recreation travel during a pandemic. If you think about some of actually what our center has discussed in other webinars around professional athletes and hosting sporting events during the pandemic, I think the comment is advocating for essential worker status for people who work in this industry seems to show a disconnect from the realities of the current experiences from others across the country. What's your response to that? Jump in.
Yeah. I'll give it a first shot. A couple of things. First of all, every state and economy in our country is different. And we have an economy in Colorado that it has a very, very large building block, a very large foundational piece that's based on people traveling. It's not just people from outside of Colorado, it's people who are citizens. And our outdoor experiences in the wintertime, our ski area offerings are not considered a luxury by a lot of people who live here. They're part of their life. Every ski area in Colorado is not a large destination ski resort. We have lots of folks who live in our communities where the best mental health moment of their day is when they get off work and they go night skiing for an hour before they go home. We also have a workforce in this state that works in the travel and tourism business and across the country, that has been heavily impacted by the pandemic. And these are real people with real jobs that support their lives. And so I disagree with the notion that it's unethical to be concerned about operating during a pandemic. I do think our employees are essential employees. We are advocates for our employees in all sorts of arenas. And we will continue to do that. But as long as freedom to travel and move around is part of our lives as Americans, we're not going to apologize for providing a great outdoor recreation opportunity in our state to visitors and to our residents.
Yeah, and I'll build on that a little bit. I think there is a lot of consideration that needs to be taken in how we speak to our visitors and how we talk to our visitors. And I don't perceive that marketing this year has been like marketing in the past. I think it's been much more cognizant of the realities of talking about what safety measures are in place, ensuring that guests are aware of what the local expectations are, be it mask ordinances or distancing and other things, capacities at restaurants, and what the changes are and what the local expectations are. I'm not seeing a lot of the traditional marketing efforts that we've seen in the past. So I think that operators and lodges and destination marketing organizations and chambers have changed their tone in a very appropriate way to ensure that we're communicating that. And I think Melanie's right that until and unless the federal government or state government or others tell people that they can't travel, it's our job to ensure that the people who choose to travel have all the information at their hands, so that when they show up, their expectations are met and the community expectations are met. So I think that that's how I would tackle that, is that I haven't seen resorts or communities marketing themselves in what I would say inappropriate or tone deaf manners. I think everyone's been cognizant. And I think that underlying issue of communicating what those expectations are has been the primary driver, where we're communicating what people need to know versus what we want them to know, right? Historically, we want them to know about snowfall and events and all of this, and we've shifted. Now we're talking about mask ordinances and safety issues and COVID testing opportunities and things. So I think it's a matter of just being respectful to the current environment and ensuring that we take good care of our employees.
Thank you, Chris. And Sarah, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to that question. Have you seen priorities shift as far as putting the worker first?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a very valid question, first of all, but I also do think it's our ethical obligation to provide employment and jobs and allow people to keep their lifestyles up here that they have tried so hard to establish, and so that's our goal in staying open and providing a safe environment is to continue to keep people employed and getting a paycheck, and also it's about mental wellness too. I think the hardest part for us was the closure, and getting people back to work where they are in a more social environment was the best thing we could have possibly done for their mental wellness.
Well, I really like, I don't know if we lost Melanie here, but I really like wrapping on that note, because just to summarize what we've heard here today, during those first few months of the pandemic, those mountain towns were hardest hit. And so what you all have been able to demonstrate to collaborate and to step up and to have that business community really come together for putting worker health and safety first has demonstrated a lot of leadership. And our eyes, I think, continue to be on not just the Eagle County and the mountain communities, but really to continue to track how you all are responding in the coming months and evolving as a community. So thank you for participating today. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Melanie. And thank you to Pinnacol for your support to make this possible. And we're going to continue with 2 other webinars in the coming months. So thank you to all of our participants for joining us. And please remember to take our brief survey and visit our calendar to learn more about future events. Thank you all again. And I hope we get some good snow soon. Take care.